But y'all, I think it's about truly understanding the state of your business right now. If you build it right, you can have whatever you want. If you leave it to chance, that's where a lot of people are struggling now. Today is all about building predictable, stable outcomes in your business. And if that's the challenge worth solving for, these are the big three. For some of you, it's the activity addiction. I call it confusing motion with progress. We all know busy does not equal productive, right? We all intuitively understand that. But there's a lot of times we get into a busy rhythm within the business and we mistake that for progress. If you want to know the diagnosis, it's the inability to connect your activities with specific outcomes. So if you're busy, but it's not giving you the outcomes you want, this is where we have to look at our, I call it the activity addiction, but our tendency to stay in motion on things that aren't serving our business or serving our greater goals. So it's worth asking the question. For anyone in my one-on-one program, you already know we do a 24-month transaction audit. Because you're here today, you're going to actually get this tool plus some instruction. So you'll have an opportunity as soon as we're done today to dive headfirst into this. It's very illuminating. But I've had clients telling me they're spending 15 hours plus on certain activities. You're talking 1,500 hours in a year where they couldn't trace it to a single transaction. Imagine if you had 1,500 hours back in your calendar that were more productive, how much further you would be in line with your goals. Well, this is the kind of thing that people are busy but not productive run into the trap of. You can't add more time or hours to your day because you're out of them. So it's the recognition that we step back and we start moving in a more purposeful direction, activity to results. If that resonates, take note. The second would be this identity trap where we find ourselves building a business around what feels familiar rather than what creates growth. You have things you're good at. You also have stuff you enjoy doing. I'm not suggesting you throw that out. But if your business feels inconsistent or capped at a certain point, this is probably where we should be looking. For anyone that says I only work with my sphere of influence or past clients, I already know your business has a ceiling. And it's not because your sphere isn't great, they're valuable. But the real estate gods in your sphere of influence don't always produce 2 deals a month or whatever your goals are. So the identity trap is, do I have one key lever in my business or something that I'm just hanging on to that I'm not stepping away from to bring in something new? And in my particular case, I was not blessed with a wonderful network from 26 to 31, growing my business like crazy. My network wasn't buying and selling homes. My family wasn't interested in buying or selling with me. They weren't available. And so when I sought to grow my business and I eventually became a top 100 agent in my market, Washington, D.C. by 31, it wasn't because my network was my net worth. It was simply that I figured out how to fish in many different ponds that optimized for the results I wanted. That's available to all of you. I promise you, if the guy on the left here at 31 could be a top 100 broker in his city in a very competitive market, so can you. But it may mean stepping away from the narrow version of your business today. Check in with yourself. If this resonates, it's a problem we're solving. And the third, this is very common for many entrepreneurs, but certainly real estate agents. It's the idea of starting over all the time. Mm-hmm. Has anyone here heard, if you don't learn AI right now, you're getting left behind? Mm-hmm. Drop in the chat or just like nod your head if you've heard a bunch of, if you don't, you will fill in the blank, bad outcome. Mm-hmm. That's happened, right? Yes, thank you in the chat. Guys, gals, y'all, it's bullshit. Not because technology's bad, not because these fill in the blank things aren't worthy of your attention. It's simply that if we don't have proper architecture around what we're doing, tools and starting over never compounds. Said differently, if you are starting like 12 one-month plans in a year, in other words, new shiny object, new shiny object, new shiny object, and no real follow-through, you have nothing compounding your business. It's like putting your money in the bank and withdrawing it every single month. I don't care what the interest rate is, which is the upside. If you're withdrawing it every month, you're not getting it and it's not compounding. Your business is the same way. So starting and stopping and throwing things against the wall all the time is the way that many of us stay in this level of unpredictable, unstable businesses. Easy fix if you understand that's what's happening. So I ask you, be honest. Like, you don't have to say in the chat, but if you're okay with it, I'd love to see some of your answers. Which of these three do you feel like resonates most with you? Drop in the chat. Is it activity? Are you just busy, kind of tied into all the motion that comes with it, but you're not seeing the outcomes? Is it more of that identity? Are you only working with your sphere of influence, your past clients? Or maybe you're only doing cold calling or whatever the case is? Or is it you just feel like you're starting over all the time and nothing's compounding? Diane, novelty. Thank you. I understand that completely. See, we got no name on it, common room, identity. Yeah. All three, Cindy. You're not alone. I promise. You know what's amazing? I get to have some lovely conversations with people that you would not think are struggling with some of these things, but it's so common across the industry at all levels that one of these three are holding the potential of the person back. So don't feel bad. Just recognize if we don't know what's broken, we can't fix it. Awesome. We can solve these problems if we know they exist. So let's figure that out. Next steps. Let's diagnose your business. I've got 5 questions for you. Check in with yourself, make a note, and by the end, we will have a clear picture because it allows us to solve for something specific. These are the same challenges that I see so commonly. Ask yourself where your last 10 deals came from. Think about it now if you can. I know you probably don't have it in front of you, but if you were to ask yourself where the last 10 closings came from, could you come up with an answer? Is it some lead generation system you built? Open houses? Maybe it's sphere of influence, past clients transacting, referrals. Where's your last 10 coming from? Referral, Cindy, appreciate it. Anything else? Because here's the reality. If 4 and 5 of your deals come from one source, you're stuck in that identity trap, and that's okay. But I also know if predictable, stable business outcomes are what you're looking for, this is where you can make some changes for the better. By the end of today, you're going to have a 24-month transaction audit where you can run through this by yourself. I see referrals a couple times in the chat. Referrals past clients. May I, not to be controversial, but to give you some clarity and just a different perspective to review. May I do this with candor? I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I don't want to come off as contrarian because I'm not none of those things. But if I could be completely honest, the reliance on our network in this industry, assuming you're a great-hearted agent who wants to serve more people, is such a bad ethos. Why? It's just a limited pool of people. You can't work it any harder at a certain point before you're just a pest to everyone in your life. If you're good at what you do, if you do it the right way, if you lead with your heart, if you put your clients first, if you're not money focused, you're outcomes driven for your clients, you already know that half the industry can't say what I just said. At least they are corner cutting. They are commission interested. They are not client focused. They drop the ball. They're terrible communicators, right? You already know. You're working with them right now, probably on the other side of a transaction, and you're not that. Well, my question is, no less than 50% of your market is going to hire someone they don't already know to buy or sell this year. Approximately 50%. The other 50%, they already have a person like you in their life. They already have a best friend. They have a previous relationship. But half your market is transient. They don't want to work with their friends. They maybe tried their agent who was their first choice. Their previous agent didn't do a great job. There's all these reasons. And if you're not making yourself known, liked, and trusted by that segment of your marketplace, you're allowing those other agents in your market to take your place that won't do as good of a job. So if you know you're better, you're different, you're doing your market a disservice by not being known to them. That's my view. If you're a great agent for your network and your referrals, step away and add some strangers to that business. They'll thank you later. You will grow your business like crazy, and your network will grow rapidly. That's my 2 cents. It's not that I hate Ninja. I did my Ninja 9 for years. It's not, I just didn't have the fortune growing my business to have a network. So that came later. And it's like, wow, what a gift. What a gift it was to grow my business on my terms. Let's jump into the next one. If you stop pushing for 30 days, what I mean by pushing is doing stuff. No calls, no open houses, no coffee meetups, no handwritten notes. But if you completely stop for the next 30 days, would your business fall off a cliff, or would it keep working on some level? Which of those two things would happen? My assumption is if it stops when you stop, you don't have a system, you just have a routine. And all of this comes down to architecture. Systems can be built to create predictability, but pushing is not a predictable model. Why is that? What happens when you push and it works? You get busy. What happens when you get busy? You run out of hours in the day to keep pushing because you're servicing your clients. Wonderful. This is what you prayed for. This is what you worked hard to get. But you see what happens. Your business development falls off a cliff while you're helping those 4 or 5 motivated buyers. What happens when they go to escrow and close? We're starting over again. This is the problem with a push sphere, push-based business. It ebbs, it flows, peaks and valleys. Systems don't. They work when you don't. Now you still need to, work with them, but a system is architecture. Think of it that way. Can you name one marketing activity that you've done consistently for the last 12 months? Can you think of something outside of your chief primary lead source? Let's say for those who answered my sphere of influence and past clients and referrals were, I'll call that your database, is your primary driver. Outside of that, is there something you've done consistently? So I highlighted it in red. It's the word that matters here for the last 12 months. Not you tried AI once, you did this course and did some social media stuff for a season, but something you stuck with for 12 or more months consistently. If you can't say yes to that answer, you don't have a compounding business. You're falling that novelty trap. It's totally fixable. Consistency is the key. Stuff takes time to work. I wish it were the other way around. It worked and then you were willing to put in the time, but it's reversed. So that's the problem with the gotta learn stuff. If we're not able to stick with it, it doesn't compound and we continue to start and stop. Here's a question that most agents can't answer. I'm challenging you. Can you at least somewhat answer this right now? What's an average deal worth to you? If you took your average sales price, multiply that by your commission rate, let's say 2.75%, could you then come back into the math of what each transaction is worth? Have you stopped to come up with what that number looks like? If you're looking to build architecture on a predictable business, we've got to know the math. It's important. So if you haven't done this, you ought to know what a deal pays when it works out. If I said, put 30 hours and $3,000 of effort and money into something, and your average transaction is completely undefined, what would be your ROI on that money and time? We wouldn't know. But if we knew the numbers, we could say that's a 4x multiple on your time and money. That's something you can create a system and a plan and optimize around. But that single number tells you exactly what to prioritize in your business with your effort and your money, where stuff is coming from and what it pays when it works out. I have a client I'm currently working one-on-one with. He's wonderful. He's doing he's growing his business like crazy. But there's an old saying, what got you here won't take you there. And his goals far exceed where he is today. And I love this about the people I work with. They want more. But we came to a realization that his plan, one of his key lead generation pillars, after we took the averages and did this entire exercise, he was making like $9 an hour on the activity. Something he could hire easily for that amount. It's just not worth his time. But if we don't know what something pays when it works out, we're just winging it and guessing it. That's the idea. So outside of your main lead source, this is my last question. What's the closest thing to work, the closest thing to work in your business right now? Not necessarily the thing you just started or tried or the AI training you just took, but what's that closest to producing results activity that's just not quite there yet? You're kind of in the middle of figuring it out. If there's nothing that comes to mind, we've got some homework. That means you just have a very one-dimensional business, and that's okay. Super easy to fix. But if a few things come to mind, I want you to think in terms of prioritizing what is the closest thing to working. And that is the thing that your effort should be spent on, your money should be spent on, your bandwidth should be spent on, not learning a new tool that you may or may not ever touch again. Not chasing the shiny object, right? So for everyone here, I'm going to drop in the chat a link because I know not everyone can scan a QR code. I'll also email this after the training today. But this is the tool. I mentioned to you a 24-month transaction audit. This alone will answer many of the questions I just asked you if you take it seriously. It's something that will pay dividends to get clarity in your business. So as we build the architecture, we understand the roadmap. We understand the math behind your business and what it would take to have success. So you've got this tool to help. And I promise you, everyone who has done it, whether it's in one of these trainings or in my one-on-one, come out of this far more informed about their business and often say stuff like, wow, I had no idea how fill in the blank my business was. Vulnerable, one-dimensional, lopsided, unprofitable, average commission needs to improve. These are all metrics that this will help you understand. So if you answered any of my 5 questions from gut feeling, this solves all of it. Please try it out. Please try it out. And I'm going to drop it in the chat as well before we get off today. And I'm going to email it as well. So if you can't scan it, you're good to go. So once we diagnose your business with what might be wrong, this is how you put it back together. And this is what the next 10 or so minutes will be about today, and an entirety of Thursday will be about. Predictable business stack is simply figuring out how to put the pieces back together in order. Notice intention is at the very base of this pyramid. It's the starting point of any build in your business, whether it's a lead generation source, whether it's directional, whether it's a brokerage you're looking to go to, whether it's you can use this for all things, but specifically to grow predictability, scalability in your business, we have to start with intention. Who's this for? What's it for? What decision should it trigger? Where am I looking to get from this? What direction is this taking me? And then and only then we can ask, what are the big picture architectural steps to get there? So you fill this in with, these are the 10 things that need to happen, approximately when, big picture. Think like an architect sits down with their client for the first time and says, you want a house? Great. What do you like about it? It doesn't start with the blueprint. It starts with, what do you need out of it? The intention behind the use, and then they build the blueprint from it. That's intent working into flow. And then and only then do we move into execution. You see what most agents I work with do, and I just see this all the time, is they start with the doing and they're not sure why, and they're not even sure of the steps moving forward. They're just running. So they start with the execution. That would be comparable to saying, you need to learn AI or else. Which one? Claude? ChatGPT? Are we talking about Anthropic? Are we talking, and for what purpose? Well, we just need to learn it because it's important, really. What's it going to help you with? What purpose does that serve in your bit? So these are where the intention and the flow become really important. If you don't take the time to build intention and flow, the tool, the doing, will be a waste of your time. And for anyone that finds themselves starting and restarting on a regular basis, you're in the business of doing and you're not building. Again, easy to fix. Drop in the chat. I want to check in before we're not terribly far from being done, but I would love to see in the chat just a response. I know I can't see your heads nod. I wish we were live. I'd do a show of hands, but is this making sense to anyone out there? Do you feel like we're talking about you and your business at all right now? If so, just drop a yes in the chat. Drop a thumbs up. Anyone feel like this is something that they intuitively are understanding, but are like, oh crap, I need to start thinking about these topics? Yes. Diana, Stephen, Lori, Karen, Trey, Tree. Sorry, I'm so bad with reading in names on the fly. Dyslexia is a hell of a thing. Yes. I'm so grateful because this is hand to the real estate gods, the truth. Most successful, predictable, scalable businesses are architecture, not talent, not tactics. They're not smarter. They're not harder working. They have architecture. And architecture is the difference between the whole thing falling down or enduring the test of time. What do you want from your business? Well, with that answer in mind and some intention and flow behind it, the execution becomes pretty darn clear. Most people aren't asking themselves some of those key fundamental questions. They're just reacting and doing, and that's fine for a while. But if your goal is to get to a new place, we know this is the next step. And I promise you, this is the journey that a lot of top producers take. So today, I want you to kind of think of it in terms of, is your business sphere dependent? Is it one dimensional? Do you have inconsistent lead generation? Because when you stop, it stops. One of those 5 questions. Is it because you've never really built a system? Like, where's the challenge? What's the missing piece? Mm-hmm. And from that, we can build on anything, but it starts with the understanding of the problem. I'm going to leave some time for Q&A, and I wish we were working one-on-one because we could go back and forth on your specific situation. But between the audit tool and between some of these questions, I hope you put those two together and we've got clarity on what might be missing. And within each one of those traps, there is an antidote. There is a solution. On Thursday, I'm going to go deep into how you build something that is predictable in your business development life. But I do think you need to answer those questions for yourself first. What do I want? Where's the deficiency in my business? And what might be the way out? And obviously, one-on-one coaching is something I've relied heavily on in my career to get clarity on some of these topics, to have that dialogue. If you have someone in your life like that, wonderful. And if you don't, feel free to reach out. But even if you don't have that and you're not in the place where coaching makes sense, you can have these conversations with yourself. I encourage you to do it because you don't need to settle for what the real estate gods provide or what luck will have. We can build architecture on anything. You're smart, you're hardworking. It's not the issue. It's architecture. So do the audit, check in on those questions. If I can be of help, specifically reach out. We can have a conversation offline. And without further ado, I'm going to leave some time now for Q&A. If anyone wants to go through their situation or just talk, I'm here. But that's where I want to leave it for today, not because there's so much more we could talk about,